Good evening. Welcome to chapters 17 and 18 of Underdogs. The more perceptive among you may have noticed the change of scenery. This is my conservatory because, well, now we've got light and a little bit of blue sky left out here. If this is affecting the echoes or makes things difficult to hear, please let me know sooner rather than later and I'll relocate upstairs. But before any of that, I'd like to say Happy World Autism Acceptance Day. The rest of the world knows it as World Autism Awareness Day, but most autistic advocates are trying to have it rebranded as Acceptance Day because, well, let's just say that you can be aware of something and still discriminate against it. You can still be aware of the existence of something and think it needs stamping out or something like that. So, yeah, really, how far does awareness get you compared to acceptance? So, yeah, it's World Autism Acceptance Day. It's also my godson's 16th birthday. Happy birthday, Morgan. And also, it is, and I'm sure this is completely by coincidence, it is the release date for a nice book I've been reading called The Infinite. It's a book for children, by Patience Agbabi. And the main character is an 11-year-old girl called Elle who's autistic. And, well, you may have noticed that Elle is a girl and she's also black. She's of Nigerian descent. And the reason that that's significant is because we often talk about autism as if it's an exclusively white male condition. And I'm aware that I'm saying this as a white male. I am perceptive enough to have noticed that about myself. But female autism is only just starting to enter the discussion, and also it's quite a good thing to have an autistic character who's not a middle class white boy who's extremely good at maths, but an 11-year-old girl of Nigerian descent who lives in an inner city industrial estate. Anyway, this is about time travel, and Elle and plenty of her friends go forward in time to 2048 because being born on a leap year, as in February 29th, in this universe, it gives a minority of those people special powers to travel through time, and it's all about solving crimes through time. I'm really enjoying the book, and it's very kind of her to send me a copy to read, and Patience, I'd just like to say congratulations on your launch day. I look forward to reading the rest of it. In the meantime, chapters 17 and 18. So, where we last left the Underdogs, better say hi to people. Hello, Debbie, and hello, Helen, and yeah, welcome to this video series, and I'm glad you've joined us. Just clear some notifications off the screen. My phone is very precariously balanced against the window. Okay, that should do. So we last left the Underdogs. Well, one strike team is trapped in the middle of New London, and the other one, made up of people who stayed back at Spitfire's Rise, they're heading out towards Hertford to Lieutenant Lambourne's countryside headquarters. So, I haven't even mentioned today's discussion question. It's a really simple one. What makes you like a character? What I mean is what actually makes you appreciate a character rather than what makes you similar to a character and so on. And really simple. Just tell me what makes a character. And every time someone sends me a message, it pops up and I have to do that. Anyway, hello, Paul. Glad you could join us this evening as well. And without further ado, chapter 17. Hidden inside the Rowlands' shelter, Jack peeked out between two planks of wood. Bloody hell, the inner city was ugly. They could at least have sorted the houses into rows and columns and turned the twisted pathways into actual streets. They could have set up marketplace-style squares for events or town meetings, or reserved a big patch for a clinic or a school. If Jack had been trapped in here with the rest of them, he could have been a masterly town planner. Except, of course, that would have involved people listening to him. The Rowlands had balked the moment they had heard the words special school. In here, just like back in the old days, people tried to brainwash him into thinking as Burgess made him inferior. Some kind of genius according to the stereotype, but somehow still inferior. I'll admit that is to some extent my experience of having Asperger's syndrome as well. Asperger's may be outdated, but it was literally my diagnosis. And it did seem like simultaneously people were expecting me to be some kind of genius, but also not quite as good as the general population. It was weird. Anyway, Mark would have fitted in perfectly here, Charlie said to him. If he'd been in that youth offending place on takeover day... Just got a notification that I am live. Thank you for telling me, computer. Mark would have fitted in here perfectly, Charlie said to him. If he'd been in that youth offending place on takeover day. Once they brought him here, he'd have set out and conquered the whole city. Nah, Jack answered. I'm willing to bet the prisoners were shot inside their cells. Herding a nation into the citadels would be tricky enough without the risky prisoners. Come to think of it, they might not have even wasted the bullets. They probably just left them to starve. Charlie snorted. You're the life of the party, Jack, you know that? Jack stopped stimming his fingers to squeeze them against the casing of the podcopter gun in his lap. An hour in this prison would have been draining enough even without Charlie for company. It was imprisonment without routine, probably worse than the kind Mark had endured. Walls were fine as long as your life had structure. This place was like watching an infinite hourglass. Is it just me, or are there kind of parallels between this and the way most of us are living right now? Being trapped inside your house is generally fine as long as there is some kind of routine, there is stuff to do, but yeah, whatever you're doing and however you're coping, try to make sure that you don't feel like you're watching an infinite hourglass. Speaking of death, Charlie said to Patrick, what happens to bodies here? I mean, there must have been loads of people dying in the early days, right? Jack raised an eyebrow, not at Charlie's blunt question, but the lack of reaction from their hosts. Neither Ruth nor the younger men seemed bothered, and Patrick gave his answer without his expression changing. Mobile incineration unit, he said. Seriously? Yep. Can't bury them under concrete. Hi, Amy. They can't possibly get vehicles along these roads, said Jack. No, they can't, answered Aidan. These things fly. They scout over the houses every few days, usually at night. There are stories going round, started Patrick, that in the early days, people woke up one morning and saw that the dead bodies outside had vanished. No idea how. But then they put two and two together, worked out that Grant was clearing them, and then started to kill their neighbours. Charlie looked shocked. Jack did not. Let me guess, he muttered. They were waiting for a collection truck to pick up the bodies and hoping to ride it out. You've got it, Patrick continued. You can imagine their reaction when the mobile incinerator flew in, towed up the bodies with hooks and ropes, and cremated them there and then. Those people had killed their friends for no benefit. Probably stung a bit. Thank you for the feedback, Sarah. I was wondering whether the acoustics of this room will be worse than the other. If I get enough people telling me that this is actually bad and actually difficult to hear, then I'll just move to the next room. I think this will probably be the only day that I read it in here, though, for that exact reason. But yeah, if you can hear me just fine, then enjoy listening. If you're struggling, let me know, and then I'll... hi, Sherry. And then I'll move. Okay. Patrick, Ruth, Aidan and Benjamin had indifference in their eyes, which Jack understood but hated. His friends back home had a real and honest love for each other, although none of them would have dared use the word love. To them, it was inconceivable that people could turn against their friends so easily. The good doctor had united them far too well. Sorry guys, said Benjamin, but that's just the way life is here. The courts won't stick up for you anymore, the police don't exist, and money means nothing. Whoever has the resources makes the rules. You'll learn the ropes as you go along, I'm sure. We're not planning on staying that long, Charlie grunted. Thanks, though. Jack noticed the grin shared between Aidan and Benjamin, which he had seen on the faces of 100 other people who hadn't taken him seriously in his old life. He hid his annoyance and let his mind wander. Naturally, it landed on the mystery he hadn't yet solved. How the hell did Shannon get out of here? She had stabbed those clones outside the Citadel, so she had been around here at some point. Jack had assumed she'd lived in the outer city, since Keith Tyler had kept boasting about how important she was. Then again, what kind of fleur pampered lady would have torn clothes and bare feet? There were 3 possibilities, all of them ridiculous. Number 1, Shannon had lived in the inner city, then been plucked out and transported to Lieutenant Lambourne's place for some reason. Number 2, she had lived a scruffy lifestyle in the outer city despite its luxuries. Number 3, she had never lived in the Citadel at all, and just happened to be outside its walls by coincidence. Hello, Louisa, and hello, Ronnie. So, New London, said Aidan. You called this place New London a while ago. Is that an official name for it? Or, yep, New London Citadel and Habitation Complex. We saw it on some stolen paperwork. So Jack was interrupted by a bang which he recognised all too well, and the zip of a bullet that flew past his nose and punctured the rusting walls. As he and Charlie spun around and snatched at their holsters, their eyes were met with the sight of well-built, raggedy men with pistols. There were 5 of them at the front entrance, the head of the pack aiming 2 weapons at once. Jack found his hand stopping at his side, and Charlie did the same. Surrender had never been an option against clones. Either you fought back, or you died. Humans, however, could be bargained with. They had fired a warning shot after all. Don't even think about moving, snarled the figure at the front. Hands on table, now. The rebels obeyed, with gritted teeth and hatred in their faces. The Rolands obeyed too, with the casual attitude of passengers going through airport security. Like the head bully at every school, the lead man's stature and body language told the underdogs all they needed to know. He strutted around with a sense of comfort, his jaw hanging on one side as if smoking a cigar. The 2 deep scars on each side of his face looked self-inflicted. Perhaps he had given himself a makeover to induce fear in his enemies. But the scariest part of him was his eyes, his cool blue eyeballs that showed vicious malice and self-control at the same time, almost like an older and less humorous Oliver Roth. That copter gun, he barked. All your small arms. Anything what shoots bullets. They're mine now. I hate it when people say anything what shoots bullets. It's like the shop what sells sweets. I wonder if it's a Midlands thing or if they have it down south as well, but I can't stand it. Jack kept his hands motionless as the scarred man's cronies marched into the shack and rummaged through his pockets. They did the same to Charlie, who twitched with discomfort and growing anger. To be fair to him, Jack thought, he's doing well here. Never seen you for, the scar-faced man said with vague interest. My name's the Lord. I run this place, I run this house, and the houses around it, and houses around them. Don't do nothing stupid. Potts, Dave, minigun first. Now. Jack couldn't tell which was Potts and which was Dave. Under normal circumstances he wouldn't care, but he wanted to learn about these thieves. Know your enemy and all that. Gareth, watch the geek's hands. Sean, check the short kid's pockets too. Charlie's eyebrows deepened. He did not like being called the short kid. Thanks, Paul. Glad I'm not the only one who can't stand people not speaking proper English. Charlie, don't you dare have one of your moments now, Jack thought. Potts and Dave carried the minigun to the bulky arms of its new owner. The Lord held it in his arms like an overgrown newborn, his face lighting up like a new father. And you, the Lord? You're really calling yourself that? He's clean now, said Gareth with disappointment in his voice, having taken nothing more from Jack than an assault rifle. It surprised Jack how naked he felt without his weapons. With bare hands, what else could distinguish them from the other millions of prisoners? What right would they have to call themselves Britain's last line of defence? After their house was stripped bare of any possible revenge weapons, the Lord and his clan vanished as quickly as they had arrived. No goodbye message, not even a threat. None had been necessary. Half a minute passed before Patrick Rowland broke the silence. I'm so sorry. Never mind sorry, barked Charlie, unleashing his build-up of contained anger. Who the bloody hell was that? We're supposed to call him the Lord. The Lord? Screw him. Scarface bloody... Charlie, muttered Jack. Get some fresh air. Give yourself 10 minutes. Charlie turned his infuriated face back to Jack, half a second from releasing a tirade of abuse. And then something amazing happened. Jack watched in surprise and delight as Charlie Coleman, trapped in a bad mood for a good reason, decided to shut up, storm outside, and take a few deep breaths. Ewan and McCormick would have been proud of him. Once Charlie was gone, Jack came to realise how nervous he felt. His hands and fingers were in full throttle, shaking themselves around to bring himself just a little physical comfort. Patrick was diplomatic enough not to mention it. According to the legends, Patrick said, his name was once Paul Green. He used to be a painter decorator. I bet he never saw his life taking this kind of turn, being the prison top dog and all. Jack spat a disgusted laugh. The Lord knew his way around posturing, but his authority was fake. He was just as vulnerable to Grant's forces as the rest of New London, whether or not he believed it. Just like the bullies had held no genuine power over him at school, even though they had driven him to. Where did they get those weapons? He asked. And how much of the citadel does he think he controls? Only the places they go to, answered Benjamin. Probably a mile's radius. As for their weapons, we don't know for sure. Someone must have smuggled them in on takeover day. Someone smart enough to save them for the inside. But the guns aren't the real currency The guns aren't the real currency here. The bullets are. They've got no supplier, so your ammo probably doubled their stash. Jack clawed a hand against the underside of the table. The robbery had not only put his friends at a disadvantage, it would keep the Lord on his little throne for even longer. Aidan rose to his feet and darted for the entrance. As he ran into the open, Jack heard the noises too. Familiar voices in a land of strangers. He made his way outside to see Ewan and Kate returning, their words growing louder as they approached. Really? Asked Kate. You never think about things like that? Every day I dream about going home and flopping onto my old bed. I'm staying the hell away from my old house, thanks, answered Ewan. I'd rather avoid Mum and Dad's corpses. And my aunts, uncles and little Alfies. Oh, yeah, sorry. But where would you go? If we win this war and society gets back to normal, where would you call home? I'd probably occupy Oakenfold, Ewan said with a shrug. Make it my own little empire. The one place that makes sense in a world where... Ewan's words ended as he saw Jack's face. The colour went out of his cheeks and the humour vanished from his voice. Talk to me, Jack, he said. What's wrong? Jack took a deep breath and spoke with a mourning tone. Do you and Kate still have your handguns? And the rucksack? Of course. Why? Jack opened his mouth, but Ewan didn't wait for an answer. Once he heard Charlie's furious yells in the background, he ran into the Rowlands' home and looked despondently around the emptied floor. Protect those guns like your children, Jack said. They're the only weapons we have left. End of chapter 17. I'll just take a drink. Alright, whether you're watching this live or watching it later or watching it on YouTube, feel free to answer today's discussion question. What makes you like or enjoy a character? And it seems to me like people seem to be okay with the way that this video sounds, in which case that's fine. I'll see if there's a different spare room in the house tomorrow, just so it'll be nice for once to actually have some clear sky in the background. Anyway, so, yeah, the strike team are not only trapped in a completely unforgiving... Whose hair is this? Because it's not mine. Completely unforgiving environment, but on the plus side, at least they've only got 2 weapons left between them. So, chapter 18. I think this... yeah, it is. So, off we go. Chapter 18. McCormick sat alone in the silent attic of the Boys' Brigade Hall, surrounded by soft camping lights and phones that refused to ring. He had not felt so alone since the days following Barbara's death. But back then, at least Polly had been there to pick up the pieces. McCormick let his thoughts wander to Polly, mainly to distract himself from the day's events. Polly, Barbara's best friend up to her death, had spent 2 years rebuilding the bereaved Joseph McCormick, and brought the real him back into the world for no visible rewards. Without Polly Jones, there would have been no Underdogs. Her help had come to an abrupt end on takeover day. Perhaps the memory of her falling corpse was the reason McCormick spent so little time thinking about her. McCormick felt guilty. Polly deserved better than that. The front door creaked open, but the footsteps were not Simon's. They were fast and light. All the worst possibilities ran through McCormick's head. The possibility of being discovered was almost zero, but even mathematics lecturers had illogical fears. He held his breath and reached for the pistol he had kept hidden in a side drawer. He exhaled with... Oh, hi, Emma. He exhaled with relief as the intruder made loud noises against the ladder. No assassin was that clumsy, but the gasps sounded like they came from a child, and that would mean... Thomas? Hi, the boy whispered with a grin, pushing his head through the trapdoor as if playing peekaboo. What are you doing here? Nice to see you too. Thomas, you're not supposed to leave the house. Why did Lorraine let you come here? I don't think she knows, unless Mark told her. He sent me here. McCormick had no idea how to react. Confusion and anxiety fought for his attention. Thomas slipped through the trapdoor with smooth movements that must have been perfected over years of sneaking downstairs past his bedtime. "Why did Mark send you here?" McCormick asked, both needing and fearing the answer. "To tell you about his mission. They'd probably gone already." McCormick felt his esophagus close, as if his anxieties had become a physical hand that clenched around his throat. A tremor shook its way down his ageing spine. "What mission?" he gasped. Thomas started to look nervous, but answered honestly as always. "The attack on Dr. Lambourne's health centre, or whoever he was. The place Shannon was going to." "An assault we decided would be marching into a slaughter," thought McCormick. "Everyone but Ewan, rest his soul." McCormick's hands gripped one another, as if in prayer. He could not bear the thought of losing Ewan, Kate, Charlie and Jack, followed by Mark and everyone he had manipulated, all in the same day. It would be the end of the war in every practical sense. He closed his eyes and tried to pretend he hadn't always believed the war would end this way, with most of his friends dead and Nicholas Grant unopposed. "Did I do something wrong?" "No, Thomas, not you." "Mark wants you to ring him." "Ring his phone or ring his neck," McCormick grumbled as he picked up the phone, and hoped that a call from Alex wouldn't come in the next few minutes while the phone was engaged. 5 rings before an answer. It was almost like Mark wanted him to feel powerless. His behaviour must have followed years of choosing not to engage with lessons, not to avoid learning, but to demonstrate that he had the power to ignore the staff whenever he wished. "Yup," came the eventual answer. McCormick noticed that the phone's camera showed only Mark's ear. The young man had accepted the phone call, but wasn't willing to endure a video conversation. "Mark," McCormick started, with the authority gone from his voice. "Turn around and head home. There's too much at stake." "No can do, old man. I'm not waiting around to die in Spitfire's rise like a good boy. If Ewan and the guys are dead, we both know it's over. Might as well smack 'em in the face before we go down." "Who's with you?" Raj, Gracie and Simon. I left Lorraine to look after the girl. Figured it was the safer option." Mark spoke with the tone of an officer in command, as if the tragedy on the battlefront had left a vacancy just for him. Ewan's body hadn't yet gone cold, and Mark Gunnison had already stepped into his shoes. It's not up to you to decide what's safe," said McCormick. "Shannon pulled a knife on Thomas, you know. That's why I sent him to you. Away from this girl you keep coddling, despite all the evidence of her being a complete psychopath. We're not as united by our differences as you think we are." McCormick looked at Thomas. There was concern in his eyes, but no trauma. It was impossible to tell whether Mark was being truthful. "We'll be at Lambourne's front door by early evening, and I'll let you know what we find. If I don't, just add us to the memorial wall. Mark, please don't throw your life away like this. At least let the others come home." "You think they don't want to be with me?" scoffed Mark. "The war's lost, and you're the only numpty who doesn't know it." Or do I? McCormick thought. "Mark," he said, "there's a chain of command. Without it, we'd never have lasted. Don't you have some tragic news to break to a small child? Thomas was pretty attached to Kate, if you hadn't noticed. In case I don't call back, it's been an honour serving with you. Or whatever." The line went dead, and McCormick lost another 4 friends. Me, Thomas, Lorraine, Alex, Shannon. We're the only underdogs left. Debbie says, "I like a character with good wholesome qualities that tries to do the right thing." Yep, I agree. I like characters who try to do the right thing but have just enough character flaws so that they really struggle, often through faults of their own, to complete what they're doing. I think if someone is too good a character and the only thing stopping them achieving their goals is other people, then how much are they really overcoming when they achieve it? They've got to overcome something inside themselves. For example, Kate overcoming her anxiety by confronting the hell out of it. I could have written Kate as an absolutely perfect character. I'm pretty sure in the very, very first draft she pretty much was, but the story is a lot stronger because in addition to being neurodiverse and having autistic, dyslexic, so on personalities, they've also got their own imperfections as characters, like Ewan's manipulative nature and Kate's anxiety and so on. So yeah, I love wholesome characters. I don't like perfect characters. Anyway. A numbness overcame McCormick's brain and spread through his body as if following his bloodstream. Just like the moment Barbara finally passed away at his side, when all those months of fear and panic suddenly had nowhere to go. The exact opposite had happened when Polly died. Then again, there had been no time to mourn her as the gun had been turned towards him. "Are you okay?" Thomas asked. McCormick shook his head. "How are Kate and the others doing?" Thomas asked. "I've been worried about them." Do I tell him the truth and completely destroy him? Do I lie to him and possibly destroy his trust in me? Do I avoid the question and run the risk of him noticing? Should I save the news for when Mark and the others die and break all the horrible news in one go? This was not a mathematical equation that could be solved with an objectively correct answer. This dilemma involved human emotions, a world where numbers had no power. In the end, McCormick gave the only answer that came to his mind. He reached over to Thomas, wrapped him up in one arm, and held him close. The boy did not seem to mind, and with the only witness looking over his shoulder, the first tears could fall from McCormick's eyes unseen. New scene coming up. Just take a quick drink. Raj had been looking forward to watching the sunset. It would have been nice to see it one last time. Instead, Mark had taken them through a town on the outskirts of Hartford, and the sunset was blocked by a row of shops at his side. Well, at least this won't be the worst thing that happens today. Of course, worse things had already happened. The more Raj tried to keep Kate out of his head, the more space she took up. He had spent years boasting about his dyslexic ability to see the whole picture in any situation, but that made it impossible to avoid the more horrible details. Mark strode along the tarmac at the head of the group, with confidence in his step as if nothing had happened at all. He seemed perfectly suited to his self-appointed role as head soldier, but maybe he was just enjoying the job while it lasted. Gracie was a couple of steps behind, window shopping in the department stores they walked past, perhaps not aware of how dangerous their mission was. But Simon was under no illusions. Every time Raj glanced behind him, it became more obvious that Simon only kept up to avoid getting lost. "How much further?" asked Gracie, clearly bored. "Half a mile," answered Mark. "Better slow down." Raj closed his eyes and his stomach dropped a little further. Half a mile, then one of two things would happen. The most likely option was death, but there was an alternative, unlikely as it was. The four of them could break into the health centre with guns blazing, wipe out every single clone, put Lieutenant Lambourne on his knees and wait for Mark to extract the information he wanted. And after that, the war would still be a lost cause. Raj jogged to the front of the group and whispered towards Mark. "Mate," he started, "have you thought about what happens if we don't die?" "Yeah, there's a basic plan," Mark grunted. "Find out what's so important about the place, tell our old man, grab the spare ammo and head home." An ice-cold logical answer from an ice-cold man. Raj was not satisfied. He looked backwards at Gracie and held out a straightened hand that instructed her to slow down. She did as she was told and lined up with Simon out of earshot. 1 second. He's sliding into the sofa. "Mark, why are we really here? This one last slap in the face explanation doesn't work for me." At first, Mark did not answer. He held up the map, a page he had torn from the road atlas back home, and calculated which way to go at the fork ahead. He marched off, gave Raj just enough time to think he was being ignored, and then whispered. "Truth matters, Raj." "Pardon?" "Humans are obsessed with reasons, with finding out why. It's the reason our species has advanced beyond all the others." Mark double-checked the distance between them and their teammates, and whispered. "My dad was an abusive piece of crap. When I was 6, he whacked me around the face with the head of a hosepipe because I got in the way while I was washing the car. For years I thought I was the reason, but no way. People don't do things like that just because kids are annoying." Raj did not speak. There was no obvious way to react. Compassion wouldn't be what Mark was after. He put a cigarette out on me a few months later. I looked for a reason, but there wasn't any. And the third time he did something bad, he didn't even seem bothered. Was he on drugs? Alcohol? Nope, neither. There's no way Mark would be telling me this if he planned to survive the night. It went on as I grew up. Mum did bugger all. He was probably doing stuff to her too. Didn't stop for a decade until I went into the youth offender institution. I never told you how I got in, did I? You never told anyone. Was it some terrible secret, or did you just think the mystery made you more fearsome? I stabbed him. Raj didn't answer. The wind rang through the alleys between the shops, but the rest of Hartford was silent. In the thigh. Missed his femoral artery by millimetres. And in the interview, the police asked me why. How bloody dare they? Was it self-defence or revenge? It was justice. Really, though? Revenge. Told him it was defence, though. But I committed one crime with a valid reason and went down for it. He committed loads of them for years, with no obvious reason, and all he got was a knife in the leg for a few seconds. He'll have had some reason, Mark. A stupid reason, but a reason. And whatever it was, it's his fault and not yours. Nobody's to blame for their own abuse. Yeah, said Mark, halting in his tracks. But I'll never know why he did it, and there's nothing in life that haunts me more. He looked straight into Raj's eyeballs and finished his confession. Go ahead and spend all the time you want searching for God, whichever one you actually worship. You'll never meet anyone who values universal truth more than me. Because if you can't find the truth in the one place that matters, you look for it everywhere else. That's why we're here. When we rescued Shannon, she thanked us by sending 5 of us to die in New London, or for some clone-killing tour that might not even exist. We might find the truth in Lambourne's headquarters, and I'm willing to die searching for it. Mark, suicide strikes don't win wars. I'm not aiming to win the war, Raj. I just need to know why we lost. Raj looked upwards towards the approaching Simon and Gracie. Mark reverted back to his usual self the moment they arrived, as if his outpouring had never happened. How long until we can go home? Gracie asked. Gracie, you follow me, Mark answered. They'll sense us round the next corner. If they have any sense, there'll be a guard on each entrance. Raj, Simon, run to the other side of the road. Once you get there, give us covering fire. So we're running first? Muttered Raj. Why not? If the first thing they see is Simon's face, they'll underestimate us. Besides, once they're distracted, they'll take longer to aim at me and Gracie while we approach. Then what? Asked Gracie. What happens when we get inside? She said when, not if. She has no idea what danger she's in. Hi, Antonio. Stay away from the windows, keep your back to the wall, and focus your fire down the biggest corridor you see. Raj and Simon will run to the entrance, picking off anyone approaching us from behind. And then it's just a hop, skip and a jump to killing all the clones and taking Lambourne, Raj groaned. You got it. Ready? No, but you're not really asking, are you? Let's go, Raj said with a sigh. The team headed for the newsagent on the corner. The shop had glass windows on both exterior walls, at an angle that allowed Raj to see through both. Through the dusted glass and along the final street, he could make out the shape of a one-storey building and a blue NHS sign. Nothing else. Amazingly, he found the time to say a short prayer before Mark shouted, Go! Raj raised his rifle and ran into the street, Simon a few moments behind. He spotted the porchway of a jeweller's that would offer cover, and ran to reach it before somebody could open fire and shoot him to death. It wasn't until he arrived that he looked at the health centre and found nobody on guard outside. Back at the corner shop, Mark crept along the road like a stalking cat. His shotgun pointed at the entrance, and Gracie hid him behind his back. No guards, he whispered to Simon. Maybe they don't want to draw attention to the place. Raj was surprised it hadn't occurred to him before. Putting clones outside would make it the most visibly active building in Hertfordshire. He left his cover and jogged over to Mark and Gracie. Mark didn't complain. He must have reached the same conclusion. When Raj was close enough to see through the windows, he found nobody on the other side. He and his friends walked through the entrance without a shot fired. You realise, Raj whispered, this is the most obvious trap in the history of traps. Behind him, Simon shuddered. Gracie's eyes looked back to the street and her jaw hung open, as if about to ask whether she could change her mind. Whatever, said Mark. I wasn't expecting to survive this anyway. What? Asked Gracie, her voice far louder than a whisper. You knew this was dangerous? No such thing as a safe mission, Gracie. Now man up and get ready. She ran. Raj didn't call her back. He couldn't afford the volume. When he prepared to run after her, Mark's hand landed on his shoulder. Don't. They'll only shoot you too. Gracie Freeman ran back up the road in plain sight, as fast as her tired feet could manage. Raj tensed his ears for the inevitable gunshot that would kill his old classmate, and readied himself for the hail of bullets that would fly at him moments later. But the bullet never came. Gracie vanished, alive and well, back to the safety of the corner shop. Raj looked back at his remaining friends, and found Simon waving a hand in front of his nose. Mark poked his own nostrils inside the health centre and scrunched up his face. "You're right, Simon," he said. "It stinks in there." "What do you think they've been doing? Something with chemicals?" "Not that kind of smell, Raj." Mark leapt into the corridor, his rifle pointed high. Raj followed, coughing his way through the stench. The further into the health centre he ventured, the more recognisable the smell became. He reached reception and found 3 dead bodies in the waiting room. Raj gazed at the bodies and froze in confusion. It would have been the perfect moment for a clone to pop up and shoot him dead, if the building had been populated. The dead bodies wore no uniform, and their hands were empty of weapons. Gunshot wounds painted their chests, and a single bullet had been fired into each of their heads at close range. Their killer had hung around to make sure they were dead. "Found another 2 in here," said March from behind the reception desk. "They're not soldiers either, just regular people." "Are they clinic staff? Do they look like year-old skeletons? These people died a few days ago." Last page. Raj saw Simon waving from one of the consultation rooms. He jogged over and shielded his eyes when he saw what lay inside. Spread across the floor of what had once been a doctor's office, a man with a cut throat lay dead in a pool of his own blood. "No bullet wounds," Raj whispered. Simon gestured towards the man's hands and feet. The circular bruises were still in place around his wrists and ankles, bruises that could only have come from handcuffs fastened too tight. "Mark," Raj called across the health centre. "We found Lieutenant Lambourne." "What, is he wearing ID or something?" "No, but someone went to an effort with him." Mark made his way over. When he arrived, he was holding a blood-covered pillow in one hand. "Bloody hell," he said upon seeing the body. "They really wanted him to suffer." "Yeah," said Raj. "They cuffed him, cut his throat and let him bleed. And they took their time, which meant he must have watched everyone else die first. Lambourne must have felt very lonely at the end." Simon pointed to the pillow and shrugged his shoulders. "Some of the offices had been turned into bedrooms," said Mark. "People lived here before Tyler and his clones came along. You saw those bullets in the head, right? That was Tyler's work." Raj wiped his brow. He knew what this meant. "Shannon wasn't being taken here," he said. "She was being taken from here." That's the end of chapter 18. 18 chapters down, 10 to go. And my side aches because I've been sat awkwardly throughout all of that reading I just did. Anyway, thank you very much once again for listening. Happy World Autism Acceptance Day. And Julie, could you do me a favour and post the important links, because I've not had a moment to bring this up on my laptop. But yeah, Underdogs has its own Facebook page. Feel free to follow that. And those of you who have already supported the sequel may have got an email today declaring that they've moved back the deadline for the rewards, as in having your name printed in the back of the book or even the front of the book as a supporter. And that deadline is now April 12th, to my understanding. But the email you'll have received today was about making sure that the name that you want to be in the back of the book is actually spelt right and everything like that. So feel free to check your emails. And for those who do want... thank you, Julie. Those who do want to have your name printed in the back of the sequel to Underdogs, which comes out in a month-ish, not very long at all, then that link will be there as well. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow, presumably in a better room than this. Bye.